We are recording now. Okay, I guess if you don't mind just allow me to frame the question around kind of what you were talking about. So what challenges does Greater Spokane League face by having this phase 200 maximum capacity for outdoor sports and not being able to accommodate spectators to come in?
Yeah, it's very difficult for us because I think people think it's the GSL or it's our policy. And just like everyone else, we have to follow the state guidelines that are set by the Washington State Department of Health and the governor's office, which limits us to 200 people in any venue. And that includes everybody, the players, the cheerleaders, the officials, the game workers, the coaches. And so in some sports, it's really challenging to have that number when our teams are rather large. And it is frustrating that it's the same rule for in the gym as it is for outside. So, we have a gymnasium where we're playing volleyball and we can have up to 200 people. And because the teams are smaller, we can have fans in there. But yet outside in a stadium that seats 3,500, we can't have fans. And that's very difficult for people and even us to understand that the number's 200, and even though we're outside in this huge open venue, we still have to stick to those guidelines. And just like I mentioned, just like Gonzaga University basketball, they could not have fans. Seahawks couldn't have fans. Then as we moved into phase 2, Gonzaga University basketball was able to get some of their family members in, but they played all year with no fans. And it breaks our heart. I had 2 boys that played in the GSL. Many of the principals, ADs have had kids or have kids playing in the GSL. And believe me, we want parents in the stands supporting their kids and sharing those memories. And unfortunately, right now, with the guidelines that we have to stick at that 200 number.
I'm looking at the phase 2, so maybe you can kind of clarify this. So outdoor sports and fitness establishments, right, it has that maximum of 200, but I'm looking at the indoor recreation under phase 2. It says low to moderate, but low to moderate risk sports competitions permitted, no tournaments, and then fitness and training minimum 25% capacity. So is it, is it across the board? Where is it that we can allow 200 in indoor sporting events? I guess I'm not following that.
Yeah, the regulations are 25% of capacity or 200, whichever is less.
Okay.
Okay, so in the case of our football stadiums, some hold 3,000. Well, if we could use that 25% rule, we'd be at 750. And we could get the families in so they could share those moments. But what it says is 20% of capacity or 200, whichever is less. And obviously 200 is less in our gyms and in stadiums.
Has GSL reached out? We have some parents that I've talked to that are like, man, I mean, obviously you've probably heard just the frustrations of, and we're watching these games from the fence, we're screaming our lungs out, just trying to cheer them on from far away because we can't be in the stands. But they've come up with the recommendation of maybe the state looks into separating that capacity. So maybe having a limited capacity strictly for those on the field, and then another capacity for those in the stands. I wonder if that's something that maybe GSL has reached out to the state about, or what your thoughts are.
Well, Devin, we're working with Spokane Regional Health, who is also supportive of us trying to get more families and fans in the stands. And so we're working with them, meeting with them regularly, and they're working their channels through the state to try to, we're requesting 2 family members per participant, and or give us 2 separate numbers. Give us a number for the people participating in the event. Give us a separate number for the people in the stands, because at most venues there's a track between the football field and the bleachers, and the parents are going to be, or the fans are going to be so far away from the field. And in a stadium that seats 3,000, we can definitely social distance. I guarantee it, parents will wear masks. and they'll be socially responsible once we get them in the stadium. And that's one of the things that we've talked about with Spokane Regional Health is, unfortunately, parents are outside the fence and they do what people do. They gather, they talk to each other. Sometimes they don't wear masks. And in the stadium, they would follow our rules. And it's actually safer, we believe, to have people in the stands than outside our fences. And so we're making every push we can. I know that the Washington State Department of Health talking about a phase 3, because right now we're looking at spring sports too, where we're going to have track meets that we're going to, those numbers are going to be at that or over that. And then we also have, coming up later, but it'll come up fast, we have wrestling and basketball that right now can just practice, and they need to phase 3 to be able to compete, and there's no phase 3. So we've been told that there is a phase 3 out there. We're hoping that the governor and the DOH act quickly. The seasons are going by so fast, and we're hoping that soon we get a phase 3 and are able to allow or have more fans in the stands, because we want them there. And we don't like getting emails and people thinking that we're the ones making the rules. We want people to know we want you in the stands supporting your kids, sharing those memories, but we also have to follow the guidelines from the DOH and the governor's office, and that's what we're doing.
So it's fair to say GSL does think it could be safely done where there's a capacity strictly for on the field and a separate capacity limitation for in the stands.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are making the protocols and the safety measures that we have in place for our other sports where we are able to have families come in and watch their athletes. They're working. And I believe schools and what we do makes a safer environment than going anywhere else, going to Walmart, going to, Costco. We have protocols in place that we feel make a safe environment for our athletes and our fans, and they're working in other sports, and we know they could work outside. We just need the DOH and the governor to work with us and give us more flexibility so that we can make that happen.
Now, I did hear, and I believe you mentioned this, there are some areas where I think Medical Lake, they're allowing, because it's a smaller school district though, they're allowing in Medical Lake 2 spectators or family members per athlete that's performing to be allowed in the stands. Why, can you kind of explain why that isn't a possibility currently for GSL sports, the outdoor sports?
Yeah, well, I think for, all sports, like in girls soccer, we're doing that. We're having 2 family members per athlete come, and that's because the number of participants is much lower than in football. And so in football, when we have teams that will suit up 50 to 60 players, it's a lot different at the smaller schools where they're suiting up 25 to 30 players. We have twice as many athletes per team suiting up. And so we don't want to limit those players that have worked so hard all week and say you can only suit up so many players. We want every athlete to be able to, suit up and be there. And because we are bigger schools, we're at that number, and our cheerleaders have worked hard all year and they deserve to be out on the field cheering their teams on. And we don't want to limit that. And we're trying to crunch numbers, but we also have larger number of coaches than the smaller schools. A lot of smaller schools will have, probably under 10 coaches, where we'll have, 12 to 16 coaches. And we have to count all that. So it's hard for people to understand, but we're doing everything we can to get them in the stands. And when we can, we will.
I also wonder if you could speak to, I guess I'm more specifically, when I ask this question, I guess I'm more focused on the football side of things.
Right.
I think that's kind of where we're hearing from parents the most out of that sport. And like you mentioned, that's a bigger turnout than maybe soccer, which I wish that wasn't true. I wish we had equal turnouts across the board. There was also the recommendation by one parent of okay, maybe you do have 167 folks out of just the team on the field. Is there some way to track that where in the meantime, until we get to phase 3 or something does change, in the meantime, could GSL maybe accommodate a tracking system to maybe tag families out, tag spectators out, say, okay, we know we have this many people here to play and coach and cheerlead. We have maybe this much room today. We'll maybe let folks in. I mean, sounds like there's a willingness among parents to even tag out and go, okay, I'm going to hop in for first quarter. And then me and my husband are going to head out and let some other people in for the next quarter. Is that something that maybe could be accommodated now?
Well, we've talked about that, and we are, I don't want to say scrunching numbers, but all the ADs are working together. We actually met this morning, and we're talking about numbers and how we can, still allow those participants to suit up and be a part of it, and communicate between each other, so that if we do have the opportunity to get fans in, that we can. And I know our 2A schools they're dealing with different numbers, so they're working together. The ADs are working together, principals are working together, superintendents are working together, because we want to maximize that 200 number. And so when we have the opportunity to get parents in there, we will do that.
Mute here. But at this point, it's just not possible. At this point, there aren't any plans in the works to maybe do a tap out system under phase 2.
Well, we haven't talked about that because right now we haven't had the capacity to do that. But as we scrunch numbers and as we work together, to do that, if we can get fans in or families in, we'll make every effort to do that.
Is that something that we could see change, or I guess, is that something we could see change here in the next month or so? I understand there's maybe 5 more weeks left of football games, and I know a lot of families would be really excited for the opportunity to sit in the stands. I guess, is there a timeline you have on that?
Well, no, we're really waiting on the governor's office, but we're working every week to try to maximize that number and, try to get more families in the stands. Like I said, every week we're sharing the numbers that were in our gym or numbers that we have on our team, the amount of people that are traveling, which is smaller than when we're at home. And we're working together to get those numbers down so we can have more people in the stands. And we've done that in volleyball, and we've done that in soccer, and we'll continue to work on those numbers so that we can do it in the other sports as well, including football.
What do you say to parents who say it's not fair that indoor sports, I mean, they're already allowing spectators in the stands, whereas in the football field, it's open air and massive bleachers to seat and accommodate for social distancing?
Yeah, and unfortunately, once again, the number's 200. And so if we were allowed to count them separately, we would do that. And we want to do that. And that's what we're asking from the state, is allow us that flexibility, so we can do that. And right now we don't have that flexibility. We have to keep that at the 200 mark. And that's the number we're having to deal with.
Is that, sorry. Do you want, it's okay.
I'm just gonna, there we go. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
But, I really want parents to know we understand and we want them in the stands. So we're looking at every avenue. We're working with everybody that we can work with. And like I said, the Spokane Regional Health District has been great. They are meeting with us. They're giving us ideas. They're working with the DOH. They're working with the governor's office. Our Spokane region, here's what we want. They want it too, and they're working to make that happen. And so, sorry.
No, you're okay.
And so, that's unfortunately that's where we're at. And we totally get it. It doesn't make sense to us either. I mean, we look at the stadiums and we go, the parents could be up here. They're outside the fence, And like I said, we know if they're in the stadium, they're actually going to be following the guidelines better than sitting outside the fence. And they're so far away from the players, but that isn't the stipulation that we've been given. We've been given 200 in the venue. And so that's what we have to follow. But like I said, we're working to get as many families in as we can. And it's hard to understand when you look at a gym that's enclosed, not that much circulation, and you have teams and people in there up to 200, and you go outside in this open air stadium where there's plenty of airflow and everything else, and we have parents sitting outside the fence, and we totally understand their frustration. We're frustrated. It doesn't make sense to us. I know it doesn't make sense to parents, and that's why we're pushing to get more leeway or more guidance so that we can make that happen.
What are the risks, to maybe kind of get perspective? I mean, and I get that GSL is frustrated as well, but what are the risks that GSL could face by having, maybe even doing a run through? Because I can imagine parents would ask, okay, we know that we have, 150 people for sure who need to be on the field to play, coaches, what have you. But tonight with that count, we know we can accommodate 50 other people, or how many more people to meet the 200. So I guess what's to stop GSL from doing something of that nature? Because you'd still be under, I know it'd be tedious. It'd have to be somebody right there counting, you know what I mean? And really regulating who comes in and out of the stands. But what's to stop GSL from doing that for the time being?
Well, that's what we're going to be doing. And okay. I know at the 2A level, they're going to be able to accommodate some fans.
At football games, correct?
Football games, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be more difficult at the 3A, 4A level, where our teams are bigger and the numbers are bigger, the number of coaches are bigger. And so we want to maximize that 200 number. And when we can, we'll make it work, because we want families in cheering their kids on. In the meantime, we'll deal with that 200 number, but we're also pushing to get more leeway and have more flexibility so that we can get everyone in that wants to come in. That's what we want.
Could we see, at these bigger schools, I know we've got Cheney and Central Valley playing here this Friday. Some parents are really invested in maybe seeing some give this Friday for that senior game. Do we tell them, hey, all right, parents, is there some point where they could maybe just plan on showing up to see if they could get admittance, if there's enough capacity, flexibility?
Well, that would be communicated out prior to the game, and we would give priority to those that can get in, to senior parents. And initially we would start obviously with the home team, and the home team would have senior parents would have the opportunity to get in before anyone. ADs are working with each other, giving each other numbers and scrunching those numbers to see, where we're at capacity wise.
When could we see that for the larger schools that are playing these football games? Is that something that, should parents, how are they going to know when that's a possibility? Should they just show up, or is it going to be communicated through the schools, or?
No, it was something that the schools would communicate that to their families. And, all of our, football coaches, communicate with families and players. And so if that opportunity were to happen, that would be communicated out to, the families of the home team that, hey, we have some capacity. This is what we're going to do.
Okay. But not in the near future. I wonder if I can give some kind of timeline of when we could expect that.
I wish I could say, yes, the governor told us that he's going to make a decision next week. But unfortunately, we need the DOH and the governor to give us some leeway so that we can do that. And we've been pushing since this started for that. And, Spokane Regional Health has told us that hopefully by next week that the DOH will come out with a phase 3 or another step for us. And so we're hoping that that's going to happen soon. But we haven't got any official word from the DOH or the governor. And all of us,
And even with the, in the meantime, being under phase 2, where there may be the larger schools that have football games and there's less than 200 people on the field, is there any kind of leeway right now that kind of tag in, tag out could happen?
well, once again, we had the ADs are working together to get those total numbers, but
Okay.
unfortunately at some of the larger schools, we've had to reduce the number of people that we want in the facility running a game just to make sure we're under that 200 number. And if we do have the opportunity, we'll let families know that we do have some capacity to have, once again, giving senior parents priority, an opportunity to get them into the game. And we will do that if we get the opportunity to.
Sure. So just kind of, I can tell parents, just keep an ear out. Schools will contact you, or somehow, some way the school will be the one to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think that hits it on the head. You're a very busy man, so I appreciate you.
No worries. I just, I think it's important for parents to know that we want that too. I think sometimes they think, well, the league's doing this and, we want them there. Believe me, we would rather have, like I said, our fans in the stands, especially those senior parents sharing those moments with their kids. And we're going to do everything we can, to make that happen. But we also need cooperation from the DOH and the governor to loosen it up a little bit. And we'll take advantage of, if we get word tomorrow that, hey, they've changed the rules, we will react immediately. And it will happen as soon as we get that word. And we'll do everything we can to maximize that number of 200.
How often would you say, or I guess in the larger schools that have football games going on, what would you say that average number has been? What's the most at one time that of people that are on the field? How close are you to that 200 maximum?
Well, for a lot of our bigger, they're right at it. And so people are counting. I know at, one of the schools, they had to have some of the administrators that were inside the fence actually step outside the fence to make sure that they were under the number. And so, we're counting every single body, every single person to do that. We don't want to break any, rules because we want the rules changed. And I don't want somebody saying, well, you're breaking the rules right now. We're not going to change it. So we're following the guidelines. So we have an opportunity to change it. And we're counting everybody that's in there. And for most of our schools, we've really had to reduce the number to be at that 200 mark.
Wow. I don't think people realize that. I'm glad I asked you because, gosh, the fact that you guys are having to even, when you say administrators, who is that?
Like supervisor, the principal, assistant principals that are there to, help facilitate the game. And, we have to count everybody that's in there. And if we can not have somebody inside the stadium to get our number down to 200, that's what we have to do. And
it's down to just like the athletes, the coaches, and even have you even had to kick out coaches sometimes or swap them out?
We haven't, because obviously we give priority to the student athletes first. We want our kids in there, and then obviously we need the coaches in there, and then we have to have the officials and the game workers. We need people holding the down markers, holding the chains. We need an announcer, somebody run the clock. And so all those people, the people that are filming, we're trying to stream every game. And some schools have better capability than others, but we're committed that every game will be streamed so that parents that can't come are going to stay at home and they can watch it either through YouTube or through the NFHS network that we have. And so you have to count all those people that are in there. And if we're too tight, sometimes we have to eliminate that support staff outside of players and coaches.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I asked you for that perspective. I don't think people realize that, just what that 200 really means. So, all right. I think that hits it on the head. Thank you so much for your time. If I need to follow up with you, what's a good way to get in touch? I think I texted you earlier. Is that a good way to
yeah, just on my cell phone. I keep it with me all the time. So
great. Well, thank you so much, Ken. Appreciate it. I think that should do it. Have you guys reached out? So you guys are working, you mentioned are working with the governor's office, DOH, kind of expressing your hope for some kind of adjustment as we move forward, right?
And like I said, we're meeting weekly with Spokane Regional Health, and they have been great in supporting us and working with the governor's office and expressing our concerns. I know we've had lots of fans, lots of spectators, lots of parents contact the governor's office and the DOH directly,
Yeah.
asking for change because they want in there and we want them in there. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Ken. Like I said, I'll reach out to you if you need anything else, but that should do it. Have a good one.
okay, you too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.